Hey there, everybody. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of Ranking the Albums. Today we got in the co-captain's chair from all the way from Scotland, Steven Reid. What's happening, Steven? How are you?
I am very well indeed, and looking forward to a most interesting ranking the albums, I think.
Ranking the albums of Dokken with my man from Scotland. There you go. It doesn't quite rhyme. Sorry, I'm a little punch. I'm a little punchy right now. I've been outside working in the yard all day. I'm half delirious here. So, as you can see by my hat, I've got sweaty head and all that kind of stuff. You know.
My favourite Dokken rhyme will come later on, so that's fine.
So Steven and I were just kind of chit-chatting briefly before we went on the air. So, I was a fairly big Dokken fan back in the 80s and maybe into the early 90s. And then I kind of really lost touch with the band and just really stopped listening to them for a while. And then in recent years, I started getting back into the early albums again. But this was a really cool exercise for me because there are like a handful of Dokken albums I had never heard before until recently when I had to actually go and listen to them. So kind of cool to hear that. Yep. There's a couple really good ones from the era that I missed, and there's a couple not so good ones. So, and then the ones that I really liked back in the day, I still really like. So,
some great
all
stuff.
Right, so we agreed beforehand. I put both Don Dokken solo albums in this list.
No, I didn't. I've only put one in. And
okay.
Admittedly, I lobbied for one, so this is my fault.
I tell you what. So let's just throw Solitary out from 2008 because, quite frankly, that is not very good at all. That's like the acoustic kind of album.
That's fine because it would either have been last or last in my list.
Yeah, well, it's last in my list. All right, so let's do 12. So we're sticking with as 12, right?
If anyone wants to know about Solitary, I reviewed it on Sea of Tranquility just a couple of months ago, maybe not even that long.
Yeah, because they reissued it,
with some bonus tracks, and it is no better now than it was when it was first released. I've got both releases, neither are good. So if you want to hear Don do modelling sort of middle of the roads, not even rock music, then give them a go. But
it's kind of boring, acoustic, very forgettable. I just was like,
very.
So all right, so we're talking about 12 then. So
yes,
I'll let Steven start with his number 12. We'll piggyback back and forth till we make it all the way to number 1.
Well, I'm starting in 1997, okay, so there's Dokken kind of pre-split and then post-split, so they came back with Shadow Life. Okay, so this is, I say, 1997. This is what I call the lost years of Dokken. Very few bands from what people now call, and you can tell from my face, I don't like calling it hair metal, but very few bands from that era of music kind of survived the 90s with much integrity. They either kept going with what they were doing and that was fine, or they did something different and tried to be a grunge band. Possibly the only band that did it well, Winger with Pool. That was a great album. Shadow Life is not a great album. It's dark and it's moody. And you've got a guitarist like George Lynch here who just, I mean, he doesn't sound like he wants to be here at all.
He's out of his element, it sounds like, yeah.
Absolutely. Puppet on a String's quite good. But, I mean, for a band like Dokken to be having songs like Convenience Store Messiah, it's not for me, the cover's terrible. So it's not got many plus points. For a band that I love a lot of their music, if not most of their music, this is a clunker, in my humble opinion, and I don't say that lightly. So, yeah, Shadow Life, number 12. I'll move on.
I'll match you there. It's not a good album. Dokken trying to do grunge alternative just does not work. It's like they're kind of trying to be Alice in Chains or Pearl Jam. And you know what, guys? You're not Alice in Chains or Pearl Jam. We like you as Dokken. I just think it's very unmemorable. It's boring. The only song on that album I really kind of like is Sky Beneath My Feet. That's okay. The rest of it just doesn't do a damn thing for me. Yeah. So, bottom of the barrel for me. Yep.
Yeah. So, for me, after that, I am same era. So, and this shows you that I was obviously I'm still a massive Dokken fan because I don't really like this album massively, and I've still got 2 versions of it. Am I mad? Yeah, probably. This is 1995 or 1994, so this is Dokken or Dysfunctional. The cover tells you all you need to know here. It's called Dysfunctional. This band were dysfunctional at this stage. I mean, there's all the stories about Dokken and Lynch really not liking each other. I mean, there's shards of glass here and they're shattered and they're all apart. They're telling you a story. It's much better than Shadow Life. Much better than Shadow Life. And it's still not brilliant, it has to be said. The Maze, Too High to Fly is quite good. Inside Looking Out, from the beginning. But these are slower. And they're not grunge. They're not. I don't know what they're trying to be here. I don't think they know what they're trying to be here. So I can still listen to this and still quite enjoy it, but not if I want to hear a Dokken album, if that makes any sense. It's decent, but it's not Dokken.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we'll get there. So hopefully you can help me out with some ones that I don't actually own. So my number 11 is Hell to Pay from 2004, if you got it.
I do.
There you go. Okay. So again, some of these I'm kind of new to some of them. So that's why, if I had more time with them, they might rank a little higher. I thought Hell to Pay is okay. It's the first one with John Levin. Out of all the John Levin era albums that I've listened to, I think I like this one the least. It's decent. Not enough rockers on it for me. There's a couple of ballady songs that don't really work. I do like Don't Bring Me Down, Haunted, Prozac Nation is kind of cool, and Can You See? Those are the songs on the album that kind of really grab my interest. But the rest of the album is like half of it was pretty decent. The other half was kind of like eh. And when I compare that to the other John Levin era albums, those I thought were much stronger through and through. So Hell to Pay, number 11 for me.
Well, for me, it's number 10. So we're pretty much singing off the same hymn sheet here. I actually wrote down when I did my little notes, the coolest thing is the CD.
Yeah,
that's the coolest thing. It's not an awful album.
No, it's not. It's not.
I can't help but think that Dokken spent far too much time not so much post-Lynch necessarily, but post-Beach and Norum, worrying about what they were. Were they Dokken? Were they current? Were they contemporary? Are they just a hard rock band? Hell to Pay is okay. This is not a bad album. I don't hate it. I think you've picked out the highlights. Prozac Nation and I Surrender I wrote down as well. That's a good song. But there's nothing here that really sticks with you for very long, to be honest with you. It's a decent listen. I can still go from track 1 all the way through, but it's not a classic. And Levin, I think, he's trying to live up to the past guitarists in the band. And I mean, there's something else. And I think it takes him to different places to actually reveal more about him. And he's much more interesting when he's just trying to be him and just getting on with it, to be honest with you. So, yeah.
Which I think he gets on some of the later albums because he's a fine guitar player.
He is.
And again, he's one of those guys that just kind of kept replacing legends, so to speak, right? And it's like...
Yeah. He's got to have something about him or he wouldn't be given that opportunity.
Right, yeah, exactly.
But they're tough gigs, aren't they? They're tough gigs.
So my number 10 is Broken Bones from 2012. Okay. Pretty heavy album, I think. And it's got some good tracks. Yeah. And that is, if I am correct, that is the last thing they've done, right? That's the last.
Yes, that's right. That's correct. Yep.
And I think it's, like I said, it's got some heavy tracks. Empire, the title track, Blind, For the Last Time, all really good, crunchy, old school Dokken style songs. However, it didn't start on this album, but you can see that Don's vocals are really getting weaker. And that's the last couple studio albums. That's kind of what sticks out like a sore thumb. It's like the band is doing quite well, but Don is not. It's a shame because I think the songs are pretty good on that album.
I think so. Well, it's higher up my list, so I agree, but I get where you're coming from. Put it that way.
Yeah.
For me, number 9 is Lightning Strikes Again. Okay. There's a theme. I'll cover the theme later on, okay? Because this is a cool cover.
Yeah.
Nice slipcase with this one. I don't get a slipcase. I'm saying it's nice. I don't understand a slipcase. I don't know what value that is.
Especially when the slipcase is exactly like what's underneath it.
Yeah.
If they're going to put something different on, because it's like, all right, it's the exact same thing. What do I need this for? Throw it away. It takes up that inch of on the shelf. It's like,
Yeah, and you pick them up when they do that. But anyway, pet peeve. Sorry. They were trying to do something cool, but people were only wanting illegal downloads. So yeah, okay, fair enough. So this, and I mean, it actually says it up here. It says the brand new album, a welcome return to the classic sound. I mean, that's dangerous territory. Okay, right there, because I'm not giving too much away. They've never returned to the classic sound. They've tried. They maybe do come closest here, to be fair, in this sort of era. But it's hard work for me because this is an album that apes what the band was about more than anything else for me. That said, Sunset Superstar, which if memory serves is correct, it's the bonus track. to me is an absolute classic song. That's up there with some of the best stuff that they've done. And that to some extent disappoints me more, because why they didn't do stuff to that standard all the way through,
Yeah.
well, that's the question. But I mean, there's good stuff here. The more Dokken-like stuff, Point of No Return, Release Me, This Fire, Sunset Superstar, and then there's some other stuff that kind of ties in with the later era Dokken, Standing on the Outside, How I Miss Your Smile, Judgment Day. I mean, we're at a stage now where I'm moaning a little bit and complaining. I quite like all of these albums from here on in, to be honest with you. So yeah, this is quite good. Lightning Strikes Again, 2008 that was.
And my number 9, Lightning Strikes Again.
There you go.
Good heavy album, good songs.
Yep.
I think some of the ones that maybe you didn't mention, A Heart to Stone, Give Me a Reason, Oasis, Point of No Return is quite good.
Yep.
And I think John Levin is very good on that album.
Yeah, he is, to be fair.
And that, for me, is the album where you're starting to, for my ears anyway, where I'm starting to hear the cracks in Don's vocals. I think it started on this album and it got worse on the follow-up album. Because I think on all the ones before, he still sounds pretty good. And I mean, we're not talking about live, because people have been complaining about Don's voice live for a long time. But I think on album, that's the first album where you're starting to hear, it's like, he's either getting older, that voice is, kind of going, or a combination of the two.
I mean, there's something to be said for the honesty there, because these days it's very easy for a guy to hide that and mask that. And I'm sure there's a little bit of that going on, because, I mean, I've never seen Dokken live, because I think the last time they played up here was, I think they opened for Accept. I was probably about 10, so a long time ago. So I've never seen them, but yeah, live I hear that it's not great. Even some of the live recordings, I think one of the.
Have you seen the recent stuff? Oh my Lord!
Yeah, I don't
know what's going on there.
And for a guy that was such a good singer, in my opinion, I really like his vocals. But
yeah.
So number 8 for me, 2002, Long Way Home. Same again. The cover tells a story here. It's a dark cover. It's a bit of a downbeat cover. This is quite a kind of slow and moody album. I liked this a lot when it came out. I don't think it holds up quite so strong now, to be honest with you. His vocals are still good here, but it's a bit somber. Kelly Keeling, who's been involved in an awful lot of melodic hard rock bands, both fronting them and behind the scenes, and also a little bit odd at times in certain points of his career, shall we say. He's got a strong hand in the songwriting here, and you can kind of hear that, because he's always kind of adds a little bit more of a grown-up flavour to things. It kind of works here. Heartful of Soul, which is a cover, Goodbye My Friend, Sunless Days. I like this, but I wouldn't say it's forgettable. It's just not an album that I necessarily connect with the Dokken sound more than anything else. And I suppose that's a difficulty for a band who had such a classic sound, is that down the years, they either stick with that, and people say, well, you're just redoing the same thing as I did about Lightning Strikes, or they do something a little bit different and they go, it doesn't sound like Dokken.
Yeah.
I usually complain about these guys, and I'm being that guy right now. So I don't mind Long Way Home. It's not bad, but it's not great.
Yeah, I hear you. All right, so my next is probably going to be upset a lot of people, but what are you going to do? Number 8 for me, Breaking the Chains, the debut. Here's the thing. I mean, I liked this a lot when it came out.
Yeah.
I find when I listen to it today, I don't like it as much. Maybe because the production is not very good.
Yeah.
I think there's a handful of tracks the title track is great.
Yep.
Paris is Burning is great. Seven Thunders, Knight Rider, all good. And the album is raw. But I just don't think that they kind of really hit their stride yet. George Lynch is not the George Lynch we know from the next album. I think he's still kind of finding his way. Like I said, the production does not do it any favors at all. And I don't know. I found that I don't enjoy this much like I used to. And again, it's maybe the mood that I've been in the last couple of weeks. I don't know, but I've actually been thinking that for a long time. And again, it's not that it's a bad record. It's not. It doesn't hold up as well with me in 2020 as it did back in, 19, what year was this, 83 or 84, 85, when I was listening to this quite a bit. I just think that the next couple were just so much better. And now all these years later, I'm like, yeah, you know what? And they've done other ones that to me are better than this. But again, just Yeah.
Yeah, controversial, Peter.
I
Controversial.
know, yeah. Well, I figured as much, and that's okay. Hey, I'm controversial every so often, you know. So.
As you say, rank them how you like them, and that's the key thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and I went through this so many times, and I'm like, you know. So yeah, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, rank them how you like them. I agree with that. So number 7 for me, 2012, Broken Bones. We've seen it already. I hadn't actually realised it's been 8 years since Dokken did anything.
Yeah.
And I know that they still play a lot on the live circuit. I know there was talk of, I don't know if they played the shows with everything that's going on just now, but there was talk of shows with Lynch Mob playing and Red Beach coming on and George playing. And I mean, even the fact that Don's vocals are not great now, I'd have paid to see that if it was over here, to be fair, because I mean, that's a kind of bucket list thing for me. Out of the band, I've seen Jeff Pilson with a variety of different things, Foreigner and Dio over the years. And I've seen George Lynch with Lynch Mob, but I've never seen Dokken, so that would have been a bucket list for me. But anyway, sorry, Pleather, as always. Best of Me, The Victim of the Crime, Fade Away. I think this album's not really concerned about whether it sounds like a Dokken album or whether it sounds like whatever it is. It's just a good hard rock album, this one. You can tell it's Dokken because Don's vocals are there. They're not what they were, but he obviously brings that flavour. No matter what he does, he's going to bring that flavour, it has to be said. But I like this album. I don't necessarily think that it's got the classic sound of Dokken, but I think it holds up really well from that era, I have to say. And as I do, I'm going to digress slightly, and I will say that from the post-classic era, I think TNN, so Tooth and Nail, obviously taken from that, that's the three original guys back together again, and Lynch Pilson. I think these, if you like the Dokken sound, these actually do it much better than an awful lot of the Dokken albums, to be honest with you, in my humble opinion. So as we move on, I would, anyone that's looking to get into that era of the band, I'd give them a go as well, to be honest with you. So worth a shot. Anyway, sorry.
That's all right. That's all right. All right, my number 7, I'm going to go A Long Way From Home from 2002. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe you ranked that above Breaking the Chains. Well, I mean, they're just about equal there. I think Long Way From Home is a decent enough album. It disappoints to me only because it's got John Norum on it, and I love him, and he's so good. And it's almost like he doesn't really make his mark on the album.
Yeah, he barely turned up, to be fair.
Yeah, and it's like, it's kind of, some of the album is kind of like down-tuned new metal in spots, but it's still a pretty fun album. It's still pretty heavy. Sunless Days, You, Magic Road are some of my favorites from that album. I think the album holds up pretty well. It's pretty rocking with Dokken. But again, I think it's, this was 2002. I think Don's trying to figure out what direction he wants to go here. And it sounds like an album of its time. And I think I just wish it would have been a little bit better, and I wish John Norum would have had more of a presence on it. That's kind of
it needs to be a punchier album.
Yeah, I think so, but not a disaster by any means. I think it's pretty solid.
I like it.
Yeah.
Yep. And from here on in, for me, we're at number 6, 1999. I Raised the Slate. Okay, so this is Red Beach. It's with the band at this stage, and for me now, from here on in, we're talking really good stuff here. I really like Raise the Slate, and re-listening to everything in the catalogue for doing this. Wow, this album really hits home. I really like this, I have to say. Anyone who's not ventured outside of the classic albums, I think you should give this a go. I mean, the title track that opens the album, what a riff that is. And Don's really still at the peak of his powers. And beyond that, I mean, you've still got, Wild Mick Brown and Jeff Pilson as well. This still sounds like Dokken. It feels like Dokken. Doesn't sound like George Lynch, to be fair. But I really like this, and I can go from, as I say, Raise the Slate, Mad as Hatter. There's Crazy Mary, which Wild Mick sings, which I really like as well. I just think this is a really good and underrated album. This, to me, deserves much more credit than it gets. As does Red Beach, even though he's always been part of Winger, Whitesnake now, and beginning to write in that band. I mean, even David Coverdale didn't realise that Red Beach wrote great songs until very recently, which a little bit odd considering he's been in the band for a long time now. But there you go. Raise the Slate's an excellent album. Really like this, I have to say.
I'd say if you only know the original albums by the original band and you're going to investigate one album post that, that's the one.
I'm with you totally.
My number 6, I'm going to go with Dysfunctional. I dug this when it came out. I still think it's pretty good. The band's trying to recapture the magic amidst the kind of the decline of heavy metal and all that's going on. To an extent, I think it works pretty well. You know, Too High to Fly is a terrific song. I like The Maze a lot. Nothing Left to Say is kind of a good kind of ballady song. Shadows of Life. I think it's a very strong album from the band, but I think it was kind of like the last gasp of that lineup, right? Just trying, all right, let's try this again. And it's pretty good, but then they kind of realize this isn't going to work again, right? So this is one of those bands that like that classic lineup keeps trying to keep trying, and it's like, and it's
the magic is gone. The magic, and it is a good
gone,
album,
man. It's just
I ranked it much lower. In the right mood, I really like Dysfunctional, to be fair, but it's just, to me, it just falls further down the list.
Yeah, I hear it.
But yeah, I agree with you. It's trying to be something. It doesn't quite know what it's trying to be for me, and that's the issue. Not necessarily that there's not great songs on it. It just doesn't quite know what it's trying to be. But you can say that about probably too much of this catalogue, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Good though, most of it is. So number 5 for me. I'll flip through a few things here. The first time I heard Dokken was on this compilation here from Career Records, a French label. So you've got Saxon, you've got Demon, you've got Rage, you've got Rose to Two, and you've got Dokken on there. And this was just actually something my brother picked up, I think second hand, just out of one of the local stores. And you've got, it's a nice package, album covers from all of the albums, all of the bands on the back. And Knight Rider and We're Illegal are on this. And that immediately leads me to Breaking the Chains. And me being, and I'm still a little bit like that, I'm still a lot like that, the completist that I am, I also had to get the career version. So I've got the career version and I've got the Elektra version. They are slightly different. There's a remix between the two, which improves on the Elektra one, even though the production still isn't great, it has to be said. You've got Paris on this version, which becomes Paris is Burning Live on this version. You've got We're Illegal, which I spoke about on the compilation, is rewritten with different lyrics to Live to Rock, Rock to Live. A little bit of oddness going on there as they moved from label to label and various things and tried to improve things. Notable for having Juan Crucier on bass, who went on to be in Rat, and Bobby Blotzer also gets a mention in the credits on the album because he probably plays on as much of it, I think, as Wild Mick does. Somebody may correct me on that, and I'll be happy if they do, because I'm not sure how much he plays on and how much he doesn't, but he gets a thanks, which kind of says its own thing. I agree with you. I mean, Breaking the Chains, In the Middle, Felony, Paris is Burning is possibly the best thing on the album, to be fair, and I prefer the live version. And that says a lot about what's wrong with both of these, and it's the sound for me. It's not the songs, it's the sound, and it doesn't stack up now. I'll agree with that, but this album meant a lot to me at the time, so I just can't put it any lower than this, to be honest with you. So it's an interesting listen, but if you're only getting into them now, it's a journey back, if that makes sense. This is where the band started, and it's not, there's earlier stuff coming out now, in fact, that Don's retouching. Heard bits and bobs, sounds all right, actually. I've got a bootleg called Back on the Streets, which wasn't great, it has to be said, from the earlier days, so I didn't even bring that through to show because it's a bit
no good.
It's not great, no. But a lot of that stuff's going to be on the Lost Songs, which is just about ready to come out now, and they do seem to have spruced it up and changed things and re-recorded things. It'd be interesting to see how much they've done and how much they've changed. The list of band members is like that. It's got the full current band, but it's got the guys from the time as well. So I've already pre-ordered the 7-inch single as well. I can't help myself. Anyway, sorry.
That's all right. All right, so number 5. Let's go with Don Dokken's Up From the Ashes from 1990. A pretty cracking album, right? Yeah. Cool album cover. He's got a hotshot band. He's got John Norm and Peter Baltes from Accept, and Mickey D on drums, and Billy White on second guitar. Great band, great songs. You know, it's got that Mirror Mirror song. I mean, this album just sounds like a Dokken album. It's just it sounds like that era. Crash and Burn, 1,000 Miles Away. I mean, you know, it's just got top to bottom really, really strong songs. It's a fun listen, and it sounds like a classic Dokken album to me.
Yeah. And that's why I lobbied you to, because when we said we were going to do this, and we've been talking about this one for a while now, I did say to you, I need to have this album in here because it ranks at my number 4. I think this is a great album. And same again, purely and simply, even though it's got Dokken on the front, it doesn't have the logo, and therefore it's not a Dokken album. It's as simple as that. It's a Don Dokken album. And I think a lot of people pass this album by. I mean, John Noram's brilliant on it. Living a Lie, is it Europe? Is it Dokken? It's Jurken, I don't know. But it's great. It's absolutely fantastic. And as you said,
the John Norum who's on that album is a John Norum that I wanted on the other album, right?
I mean, John Noram's on peaks and troughs through everything he's been in, where sometimes he writes a lot of material and sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes he plays phenomenally and sometimes he's quite reserved.
Yeah.
Sometimes he's bluesy. Same again. I mean, he's a great player no matter what he's doing, in my opinion. I'm a big fan of John Noram. But man, oh man, does he turn up here. What a performance. And this is, I mean, it really is, as you say, Down in Flames, Mirror, Mirror, Crash and Burn, Give It Up. I put this on not that long ago, and I must admit, rather than go and listen to more Dokken to rank the albums, I listened to this again because I'd forgotten how good it was, even though I wanted to include it in the list. So yeah, number 4 for me, 1990 this is from, and this isn't bothered about trends and fashion. Also from around that time too, this is what George Lynch went and did. He went and did Lynch Mob. This is a great album too, to be fair. This totally sounds very little like Dokken. It's George Lynch, but it sounds very little like Dokken. He decided just to go and rip it up on guitar. Wow. I mean, it's not,
and that's the best Lynch Mob album,
and by a long way as well.
Yeah,
by a long way.
That Lynch Mob album for me kind of hits home, kind of like that first Badlands album.
Yeah, yes, yeah, absolutely. It's got that kind of authentic feel about it, doesn't it? And it was a bit of a surprise. It took me a while to get into this when it first came out, purely because I'd expected something that sounded like this.
Yeah,
to be fair. And this was one of those very rare occasions where a band that I really liked split, and I got 2 albums that I could get really, really excited about. So there was an upside, to be fair. So yeah, here we go. So that's my number 4, is Up From the Ashes.
Cool. My number 4, it's pretty high up here. Erase the Slate from 1999.
Yeah, I can see why.
Terrific. Only album with Red Beach. Man, he kills on this album.
Doesn't he?
It's a heavy album. The title track is awesome. Change the World, that kind of funk metal song, Drown, Shattered, Voice of the Soul. I mean, it's just, and the production is great of this album. It's big, it's ballsy. It sounds like tooth and nail era Dokken. The guitars, it doesn't sound like George Lynch because obviously Reb has got his own style, but man, the guitars are up front and fiery the way they should be on a Dokken album. Don sounds great. The rhythm section is just cranking. It's just a damn good album. Again, this was the time I wasn't listening to Dokken, so I never heard this album back in the day. So like kind of visiting for the first time over the last couple of weeks, I'm like, wow. It's like it's not good yet. I have it on order. I'll be getting that any day now. I'm like, that's out of all the ones, the latter period ones that I didn't have, that's the one that really hit me hard and said, all right, you need to own this one. So
it helps as well that as I say, the title track, which is also the opening track, is arguably the best thing on it, but it doesn't dip from there. It kind of maintains that level, but it rushes out the gates at you. And immediately you're like, oh, wow, what's happening here? This is just fantastic. And too many albums don't do that. Do you know, they want to hold something back, but it just grabs you from the off, doesn't let you go. I can see why you've got it so high, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's, and I'm a big fan of Reb anyway. And, he's had a lot of really good guitar hero moments throughout, like Winger and Whitesnake and what have you. But this album's got to be at the top of the list. I mean, it's right? I mean...
Yeah, I'm with you.
Holy moly. It's like Reb said, you know what? I want to be noticed here, guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that he realised that, the shoes that he was stepping into.
Yeah.
And he then steps up to the plate in them. Because there's no way that he's in the shadow of George Lynch or John Norum on this. And that's some claim. That is some claim. But man, oh man, yes, he's absolutely outstanding on that album, I have to say. Really good. So, my top 3, there's no surprise as to what the top 3 is. It's just the order more than anything else. Okay, so 1987, I'm back for the attack. Okay, the interesting thing for me is, when Don's trying to tell you something, okay, you see the album cover here, right? You've got the classic Dokken album cover. So, when he's trying to tell you that his solo album sounds like Dokken, he puts something very similar on the cover. And when he's trying to tell you that latter day Dokken sounds like Dokken, well, he puts something very similar on the cover, doesn't he? Do you know, he knows what he's doing here, it has to be said. You know,
Yep,
it's a
yep.
good marketing ploy. What wasn't a good marketing ploy, in my opinion, however, is they were Dream Warriors soundtrack of Nightmare on Elm Street 3. The B-side to this, you've got Back for the Attack. Well, this is Back for the Attack, and it's not on it. Why is it not on it? I put the good songs on the album.
Yeah.
Do you know? But there you go. I've got both anyway, so I'm not worried. But that's the only downside for me. George Lynch is just outstanding on this, it has to be said. I mean, he's an absolute beast. I mean, you've got stuff like Kiss of Death. You've got Mr. Scary on here. I can go through most of it, Night by Night, Prisoner, Standing in the Shadows. I was devastated when the band ended after this album, but what a way to go at that stage. Obviously, they came back in different guises, but what a way to go. This is 1987, and realistically, this absolutely fits that era to perfection. It's just, it's furious. It's not angry, but it's just full of intent, you know? And I think Don was possibly at the peak of his powers here vocally. This is outstanding. But it still only gets to number 3 on my list, so there you go.
Yeah, well, it's number 3 on my list.
Right.
And I loved this when it came out. I remember seeing them at the Monsters of Rock Festival, like, a year and a half later, you know, with Van Halen and Scorpions and Metallica, and, you know, and it was fantastic. And they were one of the better bands of the day. Kingdom Come was on the bill too. But yeah, this is George Lynch. This is all him. And you name, you know, a bunch of songs, you know, Burning Like a Flame, Dream Warriors, Cry of the Gypsy, So Many Tears, Mr. Scary, Heaven Sent, big and ballsy, maybe not as kind of catchy and immediate as the 2 albums before it.
Yeah, that's fair comment.
This is their big, heavy album, you know, in 1987.
Absolutely.
And I think the guys were like, you know what, we're not a hair metal band, we're a serious hard rock band. Boom, absolutely. Here you go. So
there you go. Absolutely. And it's interesting when we talk about Lynch and Dokken, and the 2 of them didn't get on. No. And I was fortunate enough to interview Pilson, Brown and Lynch around the time of this. And Don Dokken was meant to have been on this. This was meant to have been a Dokken album, and it possibly would have been one of the best Dokken albums post the Classic 3 had he been on it. And I asked the question, you know, how do you feel about Don initially saying he would be part of this and then saying that he wouldn't? And George Lynch actually said, well, he lobbied to call the album Dump the Chump. And you think, well, no love lost there then. Good to see that they're back on the stage again together.
Yeah, right. That's too funny.
There you go. So, number 2 for me, which way am I going to go? I'm going to go Under Lock and Key. Okay? Now, on a different day, arguably any of my top 3 could be number 1. So this is very, very tight between this and my number 1 album. 1985. Maybe I'm letting my eyes do a little bit of the talking here because I hate the cover. I absolutely hate the cover of this album. I mean,
I'll bet the band does too.
Oh, I mean, look at Don. Look at Don. Don's in pain here. He's absolutely in pain as he pouts. That's just crazy. They've been styled. You can tell they're on the way because they've been styled here, and it hurts. What doesn't hurt is the music. The music's fantastic here. I mean, Unchain the Night, The Hunter, In My Dreams. Side 1 here, Lightning Strikes Again. He named an album after it. Side 1 is hard to get past here. It's so good. It's so memorable. The vocals, but the band vocals, the harmony vocals on this album are just outstanding. And they could do that live back in the day too, it has to be said. I've got a few bootlegs from back in the day, so they're not touched up. Oh man. Absolutely outstandingly good. It doesn't quite live up to On Side 2 for me, ever so slightly, but it's ever so slightly. And it's pipped by the smallest amount, and probably the fact that I came in on my number 1 album is maybe what knocks it off number 1. That's maybe the truth. But this is as good an album, 85 as I say, this is as good an album from 85 as you're going to find. And there's a lot of great albums from the mid-80s. A lot of great albums.
Yep, that's my number 2 also. And I debated back and forth. back and
Yep.
forth with these three. But the album cover is terrible. There's no denying the great songwriting on here. It just is. I mean, it's just like, come on. Here's a band and like trying to be a serious rock band. It's like, in here, the label's like, all right, get out the hairspray and the bright and shiny outfits. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh God.
It's the story of the time, to be fair, but
It
how many
is,
people are ruined by this nonsense? Yeah.
it is. But great songs on here. And I think
Yeah.
the production is just huge. It's
Yeah.
big, it's bright, it's shiny. You mentioned In My Dreams, Unchain the Night, The Hunter, It's Not Love, Will the Sunrise. I agree with you. Side one is pretty superior, but you've got, Will the Sunrise is a really good. Till the Living End is, pretty crazy song, lots of great guitar solos. And this album has some spectacular guitar solos from George Lynch and great riffs. I mean, this is, we could argue about the album that came before it or the one that came after it as far as being the better overall album, but I think this has just perfect guitar playing on it. This is the album that made George Lynch a guitar hero forever.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, and I know that he's a little bit later in the curve, but why he's not held up there with Eddie Van Halen on the strength of these three albums, but that one in particular, I think it is just a timing thing more than anything else, but he's as good as it gets at this stage, as good as it gets. Just phenomenal. And an absolutely unmistakable sound as well. It's partly the production. But even now, I mean, when I saw Lynch Mob, they headlined at Firefest down in Nottingham, I don't know, many years ago now, 7 or 8. And a lot of my friends didn't agree because they weren't necessarily Dokken fans, but I had the pleasure of listening to Soundcheck, which was really just George goofing off on guitar for half an hour. I don't even think the band got to hit a drum. Do you know, it was just like, he was just playing what he was playing, and I was just standing there. I was up on the balcony with nobody in the hall other than maybe 15, 20 people, and it was in heaven. And then when they hit the headline and they played, and I mean, half the set nearly was Dokken stuff. That was phenomenal, I have to say. So yeah, absolutely brilliant. So our number one is Tooth and Nail, 1984. This, I'm not sure there's a band that sound quite as hungry from this era as Dokken do on Tooth and Nail. They wanted it so badly here. You can just hear how badly they wanted it. But unlike most bands, they then wrote an album's worth of songs that showed why they should have it all, more than anything. I mean, I'm saying that side one on Under Lock and Key is amazing. All of this album is amazing. But for me, the intro, Without Warning, into Tooth and Nail, and as that fret tumble goes into Tooth and Nail, I mean, this was the first thing that I heard from that album because I hadn't heard anything from it until I put that on. And I mean, even now I'm getting the hairs on the back of my neck of standing up just with that guitar tumble is just outstanding. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, Don looks awful. That's a perm to end all perms. You know, I mean, he went from that to this. I mean, he's not living his best life here, do you know, with the hair. But there you go. That's the downside. That, and I mean, the logo's outstanding. The monster hand.
Yeah, what does that have to do with anything? Yeah, I know.
Yeah. I mean, it's Tooth and Nail, and what you've actually got is no teeth and a few claws.
I will say though, they look like rock stars on the back of this.
Yeah, they do. They've got
Don's hair notwithstanding. I mean, just look at George. George, he's the man on the back of this cover here.
I love the fact that George, I mean, Jeff is a little bit, but George isn't even looking at the camera. I'm disinterested. You know, I'm here to rip your head off with a guitar. That's why I'm here. You know, they made me take my top off and show my chest. But yeah, I mean, I could talk about every song on this album, and I can't tell you how many times that I've played this album. And that's probably why it gets number one for me, because I just kept going back to it when it first came out. And I've kept going back to it ever since. Ultimate testament to a phenomenal album. By a great band, I have to say, and a much maligned band in many ways because of what's come. So what I will do, because I tend to, is I will also throw in very quickly, seeing as I've given the later years a bit of a hard time. We don't do much in the way of live albums on ranking the albums, but this is One Live Night. I've got a nice wee Japanese version here. And this is one of back in the day, thanks to Tesla, everyone did an acoustic album. This is fantastic. if you want to hear Don Dokken sing, he can sing here, do you know? But not many bands from this era could reinterpret all their songs into something slightly different.
Yeah.
They'll come away going, these are great songs. Well, they say you can play a great song anyway, and it's a great song. These are great songs. Most of it's from the classic era, so that's worth a go to. But yeah, I love Dokken, I have to say, especially the classic era. But I love
Yeah.
Dokken.
And, you know, a couple of words about Tooth and Nail. I remember that album came out in 1984, and it came out just as I was going away to college. And I remember a lot of the people that I hung out with initially, like in my first semester at school, were not into heavy metal. They were all like into pop music or new wave or, you know, punk or in the Grateful Dead or all this kind, right? So there was no metalheads, but like me. So I remember I would play my LP all the time, and we'd all be hanging out, drinking and, you know, whatever. And that's what you do at college when you're 18 years old, right? And there was this one guy who I was friends with, and he actually played bass. He was a very good bass player, but he was a massive Police fan. He just idolized Sting and the Police, and that's really, and he listened to reggae. He was that kind of guy. And I remember he used to bust my chops all the time whenever I would play this album, because the title track's got that really lengthy George Lynch guitar solo. And every time we'd be playing that song, he would just he would mimic me, and he would go stand in front of everybody and play this crazy air guitar to George Lynch's solo. And he would just look at me and go, did I do that okay? Did I do that okay? And it was just like, he's like, how do you listen to these long guitar solo things like this? Like, I'd much rather listen to the Police, you know, these short, compact songs, great. And I'm like, oh, you just don't get it, man. You just don't get it. And it just made me want to play this album more and more and more. And it's like, this was like one of the soundtracks to my first semester at school. So, yeah, you know, so I have good memories of it, but yeah, great song. I mean, yeah, it's just got lucky. Don't Close Your Eyes, Into the Fire, Alone Again, Turn on the Action. I mean, it's just like the whole album is just crazy good, and it's got great production. And,
it does.
You know,
Tom Werman producing it is just fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
So there you have it, guys. Ranking the albums of Dokken. I think for me, this was kind of a cool exercise because it allowed me to finally hear some of those Dokken albums that I had never heard before, and then revisit the ones that, you know, I love quite a bit. And that's always a lot of fun. So thanks to Steven for jumping on board with us today. What do we got there?
Very quickly.
Yeah.
As I'm going to say that, because I promised my worst Dokken rhyme, okay? This actually, I think it's actually the electric version, did actually come with a sticker on the front, which I'm devastated because I thought it was still on the album and I can't find it. But it did actually say on the front, Dokken rhymes with rockin'. Okay.
ROKKEN, right?
Yeah. Do you know? And you're just like, I still bought it though, didn't I?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, yeah. And, you know, you mentioned that you said you never got to see them. I've only seen them twice. That's it. I saw them on the Under Lock and Key tour, and then I saw them at which I guess was the Back for the Attack tour. That was the Monsters of Rock, and that's it.
Well, you saw them at the right time though, so
yeah.
I can't argue with that. That's one of those things that I'll never do. That lineup, and probably Dokken in any incarnation now, will never play anywhere near me. I wouldn't have thought, because they probably wouldn't even sell enough tickets over in, you know, the UK much. Maybe play London and no more. So yeah, that's very much a miss for me more than anything else. That's my Dokken regret.
We all have them. So anyway, everybody, thanks for joining. Visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. Steven's coming back in about a week or so. We're going to do the same thing once again with the catalog of Alter Bridge. And then we've also got Arena in the works as well. So stay tuned for all that. So, Steven, we'll see you then. Make sure you read all of our reviews, both of ours and the rest of the crew at www.seaoftranquility.org. I think I already mentioned that. Mention it again. And we'll see you guys tomorrow morning. Deep Cut Dive, Bachman Turner Overdrive, otherwise known as BTO, coming up tomorrow morning. So we'll see you then. Take care. Steven, talk to you soon.
Thank you.